Warning: some contents may be disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised. I know this experience isn't the craziest, but it was very uncomfortable and scary at some points. I'm quite an awkward person and can struggle to make friends due to my shyness. So in the late 2019 to early 2020, I decided to join my 6 forms of D&D club. I was hooked, and the fact that I had met a very lovely girl there, who I'll refer to as May, and it made it all more enjoyable. It was the type of new friendship where all you want to do is spend your time with your new bestie. And so, when May asked to join their D&D party, I was overjoyed. I really did like her. She started off as a little awkward, as was I, but she was really sweet and understanding, and we ended up having a lot more nerdy interest in common. The first time we hung out on our own, a lot more uncomfortable than I was expecting. Of course, as we had only been friends for a couple of weeks, so I knew it would be a little awkward. But I was not expecting how terribly unpleasant it turned out to be. We didn't seem to click for some reason. Everything was fine when we were in the group, but one-on-one, May was strange. She would completely ignore me for no reason all of a sudden, making very odd jokes, but in a serious manner, leaving the pause a little too long, and would then laugh, as well as other strange mannerisms. That was just before I left the 6th form early due to personal reasons. It wasn't super off-putting. I wanted to get closer to her, believing that once she got used to me, maybe she would mellow a little. But boy, I was so wrong. Once I did officially leave school, May became intense. It started out with her asking to meet up every other day, keeping in mind that I had started working full-time by this point, and I had very little time to see people. Which was fine because she'd understand that I was busy, right? Wrong. She started getting annoyed and upset to an inappropriate level. For example, she would make me send a picture of my calendar to prove that I was busy to see her. And even when she could see that it was a chock-a-block, she would start to try and manipulate me and make me feel bad for not being able to see her, sending me messages like, "I love you, but you're so difficult to meet up with," calling me her best friend and telling me that she was crying because she couldn't see me. These conversations would happen around 2 to 3 times a week, and honestly, I started getting creeped out. By this point, we had only known each other for around 2 to 3 months, and we had met up alone around 5 to 6 times, and had seen each other almost every day at school before my departure. My creepometer had started to rise, but I wasn't at that point where I wanted to end the friendship. Sure, it was annoying of how possessive she was, but it's not like she was stalking me. Yet. I distanced myself from her a little, just for my own sanity, as her neediness had progressively gotten more intense, and it had become taxing on my mental health. But I still wanted to be friends with her. Underneath everything, May was really still lovely. But that was until they came to my house for the first time, back when I was living with my parents. May turned up a lot later than we agreed, which peeved me a little as they knew that I had work the next day, but it wasn't a biggie, and that's when the really uncomfortable comments started. Now, my parents' house is very nice. It's big, they have a gym and a hot tub, a lovely garden, and etc. And by this point, I was used to friends making a couple of comments like, "Wow, your house is so nice," or "Damn, I love your house." And my favorite was probably when my cousin compared the house's size to a horse, dingling. Now, that's funny, but May wouldn't stop. She would drop how large or nice she thought my house was in every other sentence, which later developed to her slating the house and my parents' job constantly, telling me that I was shoving my parents' wealth in their face or that my parents got their money because they take advantage of vulnerable children. Please keep in mind that I had not spoken about my parents' money or the family home once in this conversation because talking about private things like that is very uncomfortable to me. She then started to get even stranger, asking me to cuddle and spoon and telling me that I couldn't escape, going on about was I really happy with my boyfriend, then making jokes that didn't feel like jokes at my expense. I was very uneasy, and my parents could see it too. So after that day, I told May that I was way too busy to meet up, so to stop asking me. She didn't. She started making jokes that because I wouldn't see her, she would just show up at my house and catch me off guard. She even changed her jog route so she ran past my parents' house every day. And then she started messaging my boyfriend. It was completely out of the blue. I hadn't even given her his social media or name, and I hadn't even really discussed my relationship with her at all. It was very uncomfortable for everyone involved, and my boyfriend was obviously not interested in being her friend due to how uncomfortable she made me. She told him things like, "You need my permission to date her because I'm her best friend. And you have to be friends with me and like me because I'm her best friend." We are not best friends. She would spam my phone with messages and I would reply around twice a month. I was completely smothered. It was so strange. But when I received a screenshot of their conversation from my boyfriend because he was creeped out, I was livid. The screenshot showed them having a very one-sided conversation on her behalf, where all of a sudden, she told him she loved him. I didn't know what to say, and neither did he, so I confronted her. May tried to turn it around on me and said, "I was talking to your boyfriend, and he knew about me. Impossible. I figured out you talked about me without my consent. I'm heartbroken." It was surreal. I told her that I had mentioned that we met up and that she was a friend from school, which was true. Of course, I had told him that and she made me uncomfortable, but she didn't know that, and the conversation ended there. Then she went to uni and we didn't speak for a while. It was so relaxing. All the anxiety around the situation faded, and May had made new friends and I was free. But when she came home for Christmas, everything started up again, and all that anxiety came back. I was going through a really tough time, so me and my mom went away for a few days. But when I didn't respond to May for 3 days because I was busy, she went crazy. She spammed me on every social media that I have, daily. Instagram, Snapchat, Discord, text message, and more. And the messages started off normally with her asking if we could meet up and that she was home from uni. But they gradually became angry, and I won't lie, it was scary. I believed her when she said that she would show up at my house, and I was terrified that she'd ask my friends for my new address under the pretense that I had forgotten to give it to her, as they had threatened to do this thing in joking form before. It felt obsessive, and I didn't know what to do. She wouldn't stop messaging me, and it became a constant stream of creepy messages. So I exploded at her. I told her that this behavior was creepy, that I have never been made to feel this uncomfortable by someone, and that she didn't have boundaries, and that I was scared about the joke-disguised threats that she had made. I ended up with the fact that I didn't want to see her again, and could she please stop messaging me? I could have definitely been nicer about it, but that never seemed to work in our prior conversations, and I had to defend why I was busy and that I couldn't see her. Her response was so strange. She became incredibly apologetic and got angry, then started to try and manipulate me into meeting up, apologizing and putting herself down, and then telling me that she loved me. I was so over all of her nonsense and weird behaviors. I felt bad for her, and I had wanted to be her friend so much, but she was obsessive and overbearing, and even though I tried for so long to make it work, but she had ended up pushing me away because of her behavior. I do wish her well. I hope she gets help for whatever is going on with her. But, creepy stalker friend, you're definitely not my cup of tea, so please, stay the heck away from me.
Followed Around Town by Yellowumbreila. This happened in 2019, but still in the back of my mind. I worked at Chick-fil-A. That night I was supposed to close, but I left at like 8 p.m.-ish. I already know I'm going to spend like 30 or 45 minutes driving around my usual Pokemon stops. At 8 p.m. on a Wednesday, there's some cars on the road, but not many. Smaller town with little police presence. Not much crime happens here. I've done this before. I know which spots to go to. I'm driving to the spots that I know I can reach from the inside of my car. Just got off work from standing and being busy all day. I wasn't about to go walking around when it was dark out anyways. The places I know have little to no cars in them. I pull into the parking lot by the high school field, spin the stops, and click on a few Pokemon. I get ready to pull on a residential street. I'm kind of just sitting at a stop sign for a bit. No cars behind me. I'm not really in a hurry. Blinker. Then I turn onto the street. I see 2 cars in front of me. An older white SUV and a sedan in front of that one. They're about 4 blocks ahead. I notice the SUV isn't really in its lane. It's driving in the middle of the road, like it wants to pass the sedan. It definitely could have just passed it. The road was really wide and no oncoming cars. I'm glancing down at my phone in the cup holder, trying not to go too fast. Kind of want walking points. Then I notice the white SUV that was driving in the middle of the road is driving really slow on the shoulder of the road. Maybe they noticed me, wondering what I'm doing. Maybe I'm weirding them out. I click my phone shut and drive normally. I'm nearly behind the SUV now, and it speeds up quickly, takes a hard right onto the street. I see an SUV pull into a driveway. As I'm passing the side street, I see the SUV going in reverse, and now it's backing out of the driveway. I'm behind the other sedan now, at a 4-way stop. In my rearview mirror, the white SUV is turning back onto the street. It's now going to get behind me. The sedan waits its turn at the 4-way stop and then turns left. I wait my turn, and then I go straight. I'm watching to see if the white SUV goes straight too. It does. The SUV had to wait its turn at the 4-way stop, so I'm a good 4 to 6 blocks ahead on this residential street. I want to lose this car, so I'm going like 30 miles an hour when the speed limit is probably 20 or 25. I turn behind the church strip mall. The church has a playground behind it, but it's pretty much an alleyway. I lost the SUV. I stopped in the alleyway, waiting, looking in my side mirrors, and sure enough, the white SUV is barreling down the street. It almost passed me, it was going so fast, but it spots me and turns into the alley where I'm parked, coming towards my car. I'm freaked out at this point. This alleyway is dark. There's no streetlights. The stores in the strip mall are abandoned, but the church is on the other side and it's well lit, so I want to go there. I speed down the alley and around the building. The SUV is doing the same thing. I turn around the building. Can't see them in my rear view. I stop my car and I park in front of the well-lit church doors, basically parked in the fire lane. I'm watching my rear view mirror, waiting for this car. I know it's back there, and it's going to drive around me. They'll see that it was just all a misunderstanding. The SUV is there. It peeks around the building corner. Then it stops and it waits a little bit before it turns toward where I'm parked. The SUV slowly drives by my car. They pass me slowly, and I don't want to look at them. From my peripheral vision, I just see one outline in the driver's seat. As they pass me, I can feel this person's eyes on me, and I can see their head turning. I'm uncomfortable, but I don't want to start a conversation with them, so I don't roll my windows down, and I do not want to look at them. I don't want to acknowledge them. I really just want them to see that I'm not who they probably thought I was. They pass me completely, and the SUV starts to drive towards the exit of the parking lot. But then, the SUV starts to circle around again, making a big loop around the empty church parking lot. My body fills with dread. I'm actually scared now. I gave them the benefit of the doubt, but now they're coming back around. I don't want to know what they want anymore. When they start to circle back around, I take off out of the parking lot, but so do they. My car bottoms out and I speed down the street. So do they. The police station is way out near the countryside, on the outskirts of town, but there's a police annex on this street. Sometimes there's cops parked out front. I know that I'm just going to park there, but if they're still following me, I'll call 911. This car is following me 100%. They've turned when I've turned, sped when I've sped, and as I turn my blinker to take a right into the annex, they turn left. And they're gone. Yeah. I told my friends and family about this quickly after. No one I knew drove that kind of car. It was also an older model, so I don't think it could have been a rental. I don't know anyone who would do this to me and think it was funny. I did make a police report, but I didn't get the license plate, so they couldn't really do anything. I did know what kind of car it was. I would notice any older white SUV for months after. Never saw the exact car again, though.
So this has been going on since I was a freshman in high school, and I'm currently a senior. My freshman year, I moved schools and began to hang out with a new friend group, and two friends from that group already lived in my neighborhood, so we would usually all just hang out at my house. Whenever we would decide to go to my other friend's house, we usually just walk since it was close. Those friends were just renting their house at that time, so eventually they sold it and bought a house in the same neighborhood. When they moved in, we would start hanging out over there a lot since they had a huge garage in their backyard where we could hang out and we wouldn't be bothered too much. We began to get tired of walking all the way over there since it's on the complete opposite side of my neighborhood, and since we couldn't just drive, we decided to start taking a shortcut. There was a path through someone's lawn on my side of the neighborhood, so we began to start cutting through that yard during the day. My friend said that at one point, they talked to the owners while outside, and they said that they didn't mind them walking through their yard as long as they didn't wake them up. They even turned off their motion sensor light so that we could cut through at night if we needed to without causing any commotion. And all is well for the next couple of weeks, until we noticed that the man in the house across the street would always be outside with a cigarette taking pictures of us when we are walking up the road. This went on for a good year or two, and we told my parents but tried to just ignore it altogether since it creeped us the hell out. The creepiest part about it was no matter what time we go through, he would be out there watching and snapping pictures of us. It didn't matter if it was 3 p.m. or 3 a.m. He was always out there in the shadows of his porch with that freaking cigarette no matter what. Fast forward to my junior year, and my friend is house sitting for his parents while on vacation. We're all staying over there and decide to run over to my house for food. On the way over, I see the cigarette and point it out to my friend. It's 2:30 a.m., mind you, and we can feel this dude staring at us. We begin to shit bricks and just walk faster and faster until we get off that road. And when we got back to my house, we were both really uneasy. So we grabbed a couple of knives and a can of mace before heading back with the snacks. We decided to grab flashlights as well since it was especially dark that night. We started up the road, and I get that same feeling as soon as we get close to the house. I see what looks to be a person crouched behind a bush in the front yard, and I light the bush up and immediately see someone's shadow darting back and behind a tree. We start to walk faster, and I begin to look back every couple of seconds and see a silhouette of legs on the other side of the camper in their driveway, just standing perfectly still. I absolutely shat my pants and sprinted through the shortcut into my friend's back door. I don't know what this guy's intentions are, but they definitely don't seem very good. Even walking through there now, he's always outside watching. Since then, one very strange thing has happened. I don't know if it was the same guy, but it very well could have been. One night, we were walking with a friend in my neighborhood home and decided to take the long way around to my house so we could avoid the creepy dude. We drop him off and all is well, so we start walking. It's me and 3 other friends. We get almost to the end of that road at the stop sign when a white truck flies up to us, rolls down the window, and starts barking questions at us. I tried to remain calm and ask him if there was a problem, and he said someone in a blue hoodie walked onto his back porch and was banging on the glass door. One friend I was with was wearing a white hoodie, by the way, but nonetheless, this guy starts accusing him of doing it when we didn't go to anyone's porch or whatsoever. He demands our names, and I just give him the first name and nothing else. He has his hand on his hip the entire time and is looking like he's about to burst a blood vessel in his head because he's so angry. We tell him that we were on the complete opposite side of the neighborhood at that time of the incident, but he doesn't buy it and gets pissed and just screams at us. "Don't you boys know that it's dangerous to be out here at this time?" And I said now I do, and he pretended to drive off. We started walking back fast, and the entire 20-minute walk back, this creepy freak is following us about 100 feet back in his truck at the pace that we are walking. He followed us down 3 turns and all the way to my house, and once he saw us go inside, he sped off. I decided not to wake my parents, which was stupid, but in hindsight, I definitely should have, so they could have gone outside and asked this weirdo what the hell he was doing harassing us alone at 2 a.m. and stalking us back to my house. I don't know if it was the same guy, since he said the house he was in was all the way on the different side of the neighborhood. But he could have been lying for whatever reason. Anyone unhinged enough to follow us home like that can't be taken seriously.
My 14-year-old internet boyfriend became my stalker by Reception Playful 5158. I think I should start this off by saying that I'm not such a great storyteller, so sorry about that in advance. Also, I'm from the UK. He lived in one country, me another. I never met him until this incident. So, I met Tom through this app called Geeking. I won't lie, that place was a breeding ground for pedophiles and just in general awful human beings. And of course, 13-year-old me was using the app daily. I started talking to him about his mental health issues. The classic dynamic of a young girl who just wants to help this older boy who she has a crush on, so she then becomes his therapist, begins. What I learned over the years of being his emotional support victim. Tom was 2 years older than me. He had an abusive upbringing with many mental health issues because of it, and he struggled with them a lot. Our heavily toxic, verbally abusive relationship was very on and off for over 2 years, until I put an end to it in the summer of 2019, after he threatened to R-word me. I blocked him on everything, and I moved on with my life. Winter 2019, I'm working in the cafe, still living in the deep country with my parents, hardly posting on social media, when I get a message. It's from an unknown Instagram account. I really wish I had screenshotted the first message, but it pretty much went like, "Hey, it's Tom. We haven't spoken in a while, but I'm going to a concert this weekend in insert city here, and I thought about you." I text him back to be nice, just saying that I'm doing well, but I ended it with I'd rather not stay friends. He says he's comfortable with this, and the conversation ends. It's 2 days after. I'm working my 5-hour shift in the cafe. I come in through the back door like I always do, and I see a pile of what I think are old clothes at the edge of the window. I don't think anything of it. I do my shift, I grab my stuff, and I leave out the door. I walk down the street, still feeling completely safe, until I'm grabbed by my bag, and this 6'2", I'm 5'3", man, who I vaguely recognize is smiling down at me. He says my name, and another huge wave of fear kicks in as I immediately recognize his voice. It's Tom. I don't even give him the time of day to speak. I just shook him off and I started power walking down the street towards a shop where I knew my dad was. Looking back, I kind of think I should have ran straight back into work, but as a 16-year-old girl who had never been in a confrontational or terrifying situation before, I just ran straight to a parent. Tom follows me, shouting my name. I managed to lose him, and I reach my dad. After that, I got a message from the Instagram account saying that he was sorry, but that he was in love with me, and that he needed to have me, which still, to this day, makes me sick to think about. He also mentioned that he thought it was romantic that he traveled all this way, him being at the bottom of his country and me at the top of mine. Blocked that account, and later made a new one. I also contacted my work about it. That's where my boss checked the security cameras outside and told me that he'd been sitting there since 8 a.m. I started work at 10 a.m. He was the pile of clothes. I blamed myself for a really long time and shrugged it off as not that big of a deal. However, the more he got in contact with me after, the more petrified I felt. I'm now in therapy. I have received texts from him with messages that he's changed, he's sorry, he's a Christian now, and the latest one is that he has a terminal illness and needs to see me one last time. Since changing my number and email, I haven't heard from him. I've been told by others that going to the police might make me feel less safe, as they can't really do anything now, as it's over the internet. I'm back to feeling safe now, which is great, but to Tom, let's never meet again.
My mom has told me an alarmingly high number of creepy stories from her younger days, but this one in particular is the reason that I triple check my windows and doors before bed every single night. This started when she was 23 and first moved out of her parents' house into a garden floor apartment back in the early 80s. She grew up in Palatine, Illinois, which was the northern suburb of Chicago, and was working as a bank teller. 5 foot and maybe weighed 100 pounds soaking wet, she was this cute young girl, excited to start this next chapter in her life, and admittedly, a little naive. And like any job, she became familiar with her co-workers, regular customers, and other workers who worked in the area that she would see often. She told me about a cute guy that would walk by the bank that she saw almost every single shift. Her and the other bank girls would always chatter about how gorgeous he was. And one day, to my mom's delight, he came into the bank and asked her for dinner. Let's call him Tom. Tom offers to pick her up, and she gives her address, and they agree to 7 p.m. for that upcoming Saturday. The date went fine. She described him as awkward and nervous, with a lack of anything to talk about. He dropped her off a few hours later, told him thanks, but when he asked her out for a second date, she politely declined and said she saw them more as friends. She went to work on Monday, gossiped with the girls a bit on the topic, and they stopped seeing Tom walk by the bank. And my mom thought that would be the end of it. Well, sadly, it was just the beginning. After that, they stopped seeing Tom walk by the bank. My mom forgot about him and met my dad at a local dive bar a few weeks later. House, bar, bank, all within walking distance from each other as an FYI. 2 months go by since her date with Tom, and one night, she gets home from work to find her apartment had been broken into. The front door is wide open, but all that was taken were some of her panties, and nothing else was touched aside from her underwear drawer. Weird, but she thinks, well, this happens. It was a crummy lock, so her dad comes over the next day and puts deadbolts on the front and back door. Back door in the garden unit, remind you, and the door is actually attached to the laundry room of the building, and that laundry room is directly accessible from the backyard without a key. A week goes by, and one morning, she sees her upstairs neighbor, Janet, a bartender around 50-ish and female, and she's in the main hallway. Janet tells my mom that the night before, where she came home from work, she saw a man at my mom's front door messing with the handle. Janet heard the fumbling and actually had my mom's spare key, so the only reason she even walked down the stairs to the garden area was because she thought my mom had been locked out. Obviously, that wasn't the case. She asked the man what he was doing, and he just ran up the stairs and darted out of the building. Mom luckily slept at my dad's that night. Nothing happens for another month, and my mom tells me stories of how that month she always had a gut feeling that someone was watching her, but she never saw anything, so she chalked it up to her being paranoid given what had happened. Then, one stormy Friday night, my mom went to bed early because she had the morning shift at the bank. Lights out by 10 p.m. and her fan was on full blast. She falls asleep right away, but she wakes up around 2 a.m. to the faint sound of drilling. She thought it was odd, but it only lasted for a couple of minutes, so she shrugged it off, thinking maybe a neighbor was making a late-night snack. She tries falling back asleep, but all of a sudden, her fan turns off and she realizes that the power is out. She gets out of bed and sees that the house across the street all still had their porch lights on. and odd only her building is out. She is now getting really bad vibes and is standing in her living room where both the front and back door are. Standing in the complete dark, she hears banging from the shared laundry room area. Mom described being literally frozen, just staring at the door when she suddenly sees the doorknob turn and a hand comes in trying to undo the safety chain. She screams and bolts it out of the front door and up to Janet's door, bangs on her door, and Janet lets her in. Mom is hysterical and Janet comforts her while her husband, Ray, goes to check everything out and asks a neighbor to call the police since they didn't have the power to do so. The police check the perimeter, see nothing, and say they will come back in the morning once they see what they can do in the daylight. And my mom sleeps at Janet's. Next morning, they come to find that someone had drilled a hole in the back in order to bypass the deadbolt. They had cut the phone lines and power to the building. Sawdust was literally sitting in the piles in the laundry room, along with 2 peepholes that see directly into her living room and then her bedroom. Someone had been watching her and thought the night of the storm was the night to make his move. It was creepy. She moves back home and they have 0 leads on the case until Tom pops back up at the bank asking if my mom was around. She was away on a road trip with my dad for 2 weeks after the incident, and the only reason he was caught was because he asked the other bank girls if my mom had quit and moved after her break-in. Nothing was ever posted in the newspapers, so there was 0 way that he would have known that even occurred. Police go to interrogate him, and they find my mom's panties along with a necklace that she didn't even realize was missing. The guy has been in and out of prison, and we are just happy that he didn't get to her that night, because who knows what would have happened. And here are the top comments for my last video. And here's the riddle for this video. Hello everyone, it's your creepy sister here. Thank you so much for watching the video. I really appreciate each and every one of you. But I would also like to thank my amazing patrons, my top tippers, and my dearest channel members. Thank you very, very much. I really appreciate it with all of my heart. If you want to support the channel further, you could also choose to become a patron, a tipper, or a channel member. But remember, it's appreciated, but never a requirement. I would also like to announce that we have merch now. The link is in the description of the video, along with all my other social media links, like my Discord server, Twitter, Instagram, and others. You can connect with me and send your stories there. And don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't yet, and comments are highly appreciated. And remember, your fear feeds me.